Welcome to the first Michigan Out of Doors minicast. In this condensed episode, we'll cut right to the heart of the matter, giving you the inside scoop on conservation issues right here in the state of Michigan. I'm Tyler Mihai with Steve Wyndham, and today we're joined by MUCC CEO Amy Trotter and Executive Director of the Insurance Alliance of Michigan, Erin McDonough. Amy and Erin, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, Erin, we'll start with you. Can you give us a little bit of a background on your past experience in conservation, your involvement with MUCC, and then how you got into your current position?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking. I'll tell you, it feels really good to be back at the MUCC World headquarters because I spent the first decade of my career here in the greater Lansing area working at MUCC. My first job here was as a policy analyst where I worked on forestry issues and coalition building. Wildlife management issues, and I ran our education programs, and then I was our executive director for 5 years. And, it was a great time here. I love working with our members. It just was so fun to work with people that were so passionate about what they do on a daily basis. So from there, I took what I learned at MUCC, and now I'm over at the Insurance Alliance of Michigan. We're the property and casualty insurance umbrella in the state, and we have members that do all different kinds of insurance. So your home, your auto, business insurance, and it's great being here across from my good friend Amy Trotter, who we really kind of grew up together in the Lansing policy world and the conservation world. So Amy, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you could be here.
Yeah, so when we released our joint press release, people were wondering, what's the reason that these two got together? Do you guys want to explain it wasn't just that MUCC and IAM were going to work together, it was that you guys have a past relationship and it was just an opportunity to reconnect.
Right. Most great ideas with Erin and I, start over wine. So we definitely were talking about, how we could collaborate because every year during the opening week of deer season, I get so many media calls, and they all want to do one story about the upcoming deer season, even though the season had already been going for 6 weeks. And, bow season is great, but firearm deer opener, November 15th, is the state holiday. So Erin from the insurance end gets the same kind of media hits and the same kind of calls because that usually is, how people think about deer, the general public who don't hunt.
Yeah. And last year when I was getting those calls, the one thing I noticed that was really missing from the conversation is just kind of an understanding about, and even the questions we were getting, they weren't covering, why are deer moving right now? How does habitat play in this? What are the areas of the state? And so I do want to point out, Amy was drinking a giant Bloody Mary when we were talking about this. And
not a wine.
It was really impressive because it had a little mini burger in it, and I was very jealous. And so
that's just a meal then.
Yeah, it was very cool. So we were talking about this, and we're like, well, why not bring the two of us together and talk about this from both aspects? For IAM, we want to talk about the safety aspect, and then we can actually talk about, why deer might be moving and how habitat and how the hunting season plays a role in it.
Yeah. And, another interesting piece of, rolling this out into the media is unfortunately how troubling the journalism industry is these days, because when we saw all of the stories come out, only about 10% of them were actually pictures of white-tailed deer on the websites that covered these stories.
Reindeer and mule deer and everything
deer.
else like that.
There was a red stag. It was,
oh, wow.
It was actually really troubling. So that's why it was so great to be able to partner with someone that has that broader message for the general public, but also making sure that, again, we're sticking to the facts and we're being accurate about why deer are moving and what can be expected, and also, how hunters play a role in wildlife management. So making sure that message was inserted to something that was going out to the general public, not just our hunting audience.
Yeah, and so I think we'll start with that. Amy, I'll ask you this question. I don't think everyone knows, but firstly, why is November the big time of the year, right? When we start talking about, deer and car accidents start to increase in November, and people are just, I don't know if everyone really understands. I think a lot of our members might, but I think the general public wouldn't. So why is it that November is so big for car accidents with deer?
It's the rut. I had to explain to some of our friends in the media about that. I mean, there are bucks chasing does. That's what's happening in this time frame every year. That's why we have hunting seasons that really peak in their success rates around this time too, is because the deer are moving around. Now, and I've heard this before, which there may be some truth to it in certain locations, that they're blaming the deer movement on hunters. That hunters being out in the field is what's moving the deer around. And the deer are moving regardless of whether hunters are there. Hunters are there because the deer are moving and because they're more vulnerable to harvest during that time.
Yeah, it's not that 10,000 years ago they weren't rutting and mating and still running all over the landscape. We just now have millions of vehicles across their corridors and across their migration, in between water and bedding and all these areas that they're automatically moving to and from. So,
yeah, to quote Chad Stewart from the DNR, they're just out looking for love.
And sometimes all in the wrong places.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that explains why, and so in 2023, Michigan had a little bit over 11,000 car deer crashes, and that's in the month of November, there are about 360 accidents a year. And that explains, it's the deer are naturally moving. And that's part of why, we want to tell people, listen, just slow down when you're driving. Make sure that you're being careful. If you see one deer, there's probably another one because they're moving in these patterns. And, people need to be more aware and vigilant. And, the crashes and the accidents have been growing since COVID anyways, and a lot of it is distracted driving and people put your phones down, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and I can speak firsthand to that. I was driving on some back roads this weekend and I saw a deer run out in front of the car in front of me. And so he stops and the deer goes and he starts speeding up. And, I hit my brakes right away because I knew. I looked to my right, there's two more deer right behind him. And he started to speed up, almost hit the second one, almost hit the third one. And I'm like, hey, if there's one going, there's going to be a couple more.
Exactly.
Well, and of course, as we were preparing for this minicast, I myself managed to get a 10-point with my minivan. So I, again, just driving at night, 9 o'clock at night on my way home from picking up the kids at basketball practice and just a mile and a half from my house. And it was a significant thud. But it did run off, so I didn't have a ton of property damage, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to salvage the deer either because, he definitely had a good headache as he ran off.
Yeah, so Erin, you kind of touched on it, but let's get a little bit more into that. So, I mean, as anyone in Michigan knows, when you drive in the dark, there's always a risk of hitting deer, especially in November. So let's talk a little bit more about the recent statistics and then what people can do to avoid those and just be a little bit more aware of it.
Sure. Well, the peak time really is 6 to 9 a.m. That's when you see a lot of movement. But I think at dusk also you see, and then of course visibility. Those are times when visibility is low. The top 10 counties, I think it's really important for people to kind of hear this. I mean, number 1 is Kent County, 2 Oakland, 3 Genesee, 4 Allegan, 5 Jackson, 6 Ottawa, 7 Lapeer, 8 Calhoun, 9 Washtenaw, and 10 Clinton. So those are the top 10 areas where you really see the most car deer accidents. And, really our safety message is, again, slow down, make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. And if you do hit a deer, don't veer for deer, right? Don't try to veer because you might hit somebody or something else that's in the road. Instead, just kind of brake firmly and pull your car off to the side of the road. Amy, did you follow these good lessons when you hit your deer?
I did, actually. It was my daughter, who was the passenger, that saw it was a 10-point because I was not counting points as I was making sure that I wasn't going to get rear-ended or rear-end anyone else. So I did stop, but not swerve.
Well, and if Amy would have known it was a 10-point, she might have sped up a little bit.
One of the things, I wonder is okay, if somebody hits a deer, what can they do with it? Or is there anything they can do?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know what to do with, a deer that has fallen on the side of the road. There's actually a free salvage permit for a deer that dies from a road accident, a car vehicle collision. It's free. It's on the website. It didn't used to be this way. You used to have to call a law enforcement officer, get a tag. It might take a long time. Now you can literally go online, fill it out, and you are able to take that deer yourself. If you don't want it, though, as because a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with it, especially if they're not a hunter, they could call a hunter. That's the one thing that I've really tried to get out there this year, is that you could call a hunter. They have all the equipment on what to do, how to field dress it, to assess whether it's safe or not to eat. They're going to know what to do with it. They're going to be able to process it themselves or take it to a processor right away. And they can fill out that permit themselves to take it. So the person in the vehicle has first right of refusal, basically. And then after that, and it's anyone's game.
I had a buddy who watched a lady hit a 10-point, and he pulled over behind her, waiting for her to see if she was going to take it. And she said, yeah, my husband is making me take this home, because she didn't want it, and he was going to snag it. But then he was talking to her, and she's like, no, I'm sorry, my husband's making me take this. Will you help me load it? And so he missed out on a nice deer as well. So yeah, you can take them if you get the tag.
Well, and I'm telling you, like, if you get some good recipes, it tastes good. Like, my kids love, it's basically any beef stew recipe, and you just substitute venison, and they go crazy for it.
Yeah, I think you hear people talk about, oh, well, venison can be kind of gamey. And I think that just means that you had the wrong person preparing it for you.
Yeah.
Because I prefer venison over almost any other type of meat if it's prepared correctly. So it's not something that you want to just leave on the side of the road if you have the opportunity.
Well, and, landowners, private landowners on those busy roads also hate having deer in their front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what to do with them. Most counties don't have a system for systematic pickup or anything like that. That's not something that happens. Now, some road agencies will definitely move them off of the road if it's causing a safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, it is the landowner's problem to deal with if it lands in their yard. So they like it when someone actually takes the deer and salvages it, because it's not leaving a problem for them either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it doesn't also attract other animals into the road, whether it be coyotes or scavengers or whatever else, that if it's laying there, it can be a nuisance for other species as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that can be a safety problem too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a lot of deer. There's a lot of car accidents involving deer in November. What can we do to help this? How do we mitigate the number of accidents? What's the best tool for us to use to start working on reducing these number of accidents?
Well, at MUCC, we always say that the best tool for wildlife management is hunters. And I don't mean hunters are tools, but I just mean that we are.
Some of them.
Well,
Good
okay,
catch, good catch.
But, we want wildlife management to be happening thoughtfully and scientifically, and we believe that we should be the first ones involved in managing a species like deer. We don't want them to become a nuisance, to become wood rats, or, all the horrible names, that people have called them, especially after they hit a deer. We want them to be a highly valued game species, and we want them to be honored and respected and sought after. We don't want them to, delve into the nuisance side of things. So we believe that hunters are the best way to manage the population, and there's so many opportunities now. There's archery, there's muzzleloader, there's regular firearm, there's doe only, there's liberty hunts and independence hunts, and all of these opportunities for like 4 solid months of hunting. Now, we've gone through a lot of things with the Deer Management Initiative, and there's a lot of opinions out there. There's more opinions about deer management than there are deer, I swear. So, we do know that, there's a lot of feelings about how we manage our deer, but we believe that, again, hunters are better than sharpshooters or vehicles when it comes to managing a population, especially in those areas where it's overpopulated. Now, I don't remember that top 10 list, but I don't think there was any UP counties on that list. I think they are highly populated areas. They're high agriculture areas where that's great habitat, of course, and there's a lot of drivers. So, that's where this is happening. It's not happening in those places where there's a very low population of deer already.
Back when I was at MUCC, I know one of the programs I felt really passionate about was, donating, like it was Hunters for the Hungry, and like how you could, even if you don't want to take your deer home yourself, you could donate it. I mean, do those still exist?
Yeah, Sportsmen Against Hunger is still a program in the state of Michigan. And in fact, MUCC worked really hard to infuse it with some general fund this year because we want to make sure that not only are there places for hunters to drop off their deer for donation, but we also want to make sure we're utilizing those out-of-season deer that are killed, like on crop damage permits and landowner permits and things like that, because those there's a cap to how many deer a person can eat and fill in their freezers. So we want to make sure that those are donated. Now, Sportsmen Against Hunger is going to continue to need funding because we've had a lot of processors drop out of it. So we do need more processors to join in that program. And of course, they need to get compensated for doing that work. And that is a huge source of good quality protein that can go to people in need, though, if we can get that system working better.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm sure, as you're all aware, I'm pretty confident or comfortable to speak on this as the director of marketing because I spend a lot of my time on Facebook and Instagram and social media. And I think we all know Facebook loves conspiracy theories and all of that. And we're seeing a lot of people that are commenting on our posts and complaining and saying, oh, the insurance companies want all of the deer gone. They're just lobbying the NRC. They're doing all of these things. Let's set the record straight. All right. Is there any truth to any of that? Let's confront some of these conspiracy theories.
Oh, I'm glad that you're just like flat out asking, because I will look into this camera right now and say that I have not been to the NRC since I left MUCC. And I'm pretty sure the people that work for me don't know what it is. So no, we do not spend any time. We are very focused on our message of safety. And we talk about safety, not just in car deer accidents, but we talk about safety in all aspects of your life. So, Thanksgiving's coming up. Don't fry your turkey inside your house. Okay, I'm just going to tell you guys that.
Do
right
it in
now.
the garage.
Yeah, or maybe even outside, right? And so we just are really focused on, okay, here's tips, here's things you should think about, like as you're going about your daily life, here's things that you might want to consider. And so like the safe driving, that's really important. We do a lot about distracted driving, like put your cell phone down. We talk about homework. We talk about you're going to college, you got to think about like protecting your belongings, like renter's insurance. And so if you go to Insurance Alliance of Michigan on Facebook or on Twitter, you'll see just the kind of safety messages that we bring out. But, we really believe deer management is best left to the experts like Amy and her team. We just want, as you're out there on the road during this time, like just slow down. Don't veer for deer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that message has been kind of just thrown out a lot, especially as, things have changed in the deer management world. And every time we have a major decision in front of the Natural Resources Commission, there's someone that's going to say, oh, they're just getting paid by the insurance lobbyists. So that was one thing we just wanted to get out there, really, to say that you as an industry, you're not working that angle.
No.
You still want there to be deer, right?
Correct. Yes. Again, we would leave the management of deer to the experts. We just want you to be safe. And when you're out there, carrying on with your life. So.
Well, if you guys are paying somebody, you're not getting what you're paying for, because we had an open letter come from Chad Stewart, the deer biologist, saying shoot more does, please, because our herd has got to an unmanageable size. So if you guys were involved, I don't know who you're paying, because they're not doing their job. So it's, we need to have hunters be the tip of the spear on that, and people just be safe when they're on the roads. I see more people on their cell phones now, I think, since that law passed. I feel like more people are civilly disobedient or something, because when I drive from 96 to Livonia to here every day, I could count 50 people on their cell phone every day. It's wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the ultimate goal is for people to get to where they're going safely. And it's like, this time of year, we know, because now Amy explained the route, we know why the deer are moving more. And so you still have to go to work. You still have to pick up your kids. You still have to, so just take that like extra measure of caution, and then, maybe go to MUCC.org and think about becoming a hunter, right?
Exactly. We have so many programs, education. We want to make sure we are creating more hunters. That is a big goal of ours, to help us in, wildlife management. That is important. We want to create more hunters. We want to retain them. We want to keep them around and keep them safe. Those are all things that are really important. But, again, just to reiterate, The insurance companies are not lobbying the Natural Resources
No.
Commission and the Department of Natural Resources. Erin works with these guys day in and day out, the insurance companies here in Michigan. And we just, again, everybody can disagree about the direction we're going with deer management. And there's lots of different opinions, like I said. But, let's at least, make sure that we know who to work with, that they are at least trying to be honest brokers, I guess, of information. And sometimes they're being data driven and sometimes they're kind of ignoring pieces of data. But we want to make sure that, we're all kind of working as a team because we want to move forward and we want to have a good quality deer herd. We want to have the economic impact of hunting in Michigan because it's big. It's a big economic driver. But, getting into the weeds on, thinking about these bad motivations that might be out there, that's not helpful to anyone to kind of moving our state forward.
Well, and I mean, Amy, you got my number and my door is always open. If you ever hear and you're worried or concerned about something that our industry is doing, we of course want to talk about it. And so we just appreciate the ability to collaborate on something like this where we can get a safety message out and then maybe people are learning more about hunting and thinking about it. I mean, I don't know about all of you guys out there, but when I shot my first deer, my grandpa loved me more.
He joined the cool kids club.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, well, let's do a quick recap of all of that. So, Erin, just a couple, what are the recap tips that people can use to just make sure that they're protecting themselves and mitigating that risk of an accident as much as possible?
Sure. Just, during those peak times, early in the morning and, right at twilight, drive slower. Be aware. Where there's one deer, there's likely two. Wear your seatbelt and don't veer for deer.
Awesome. And then, Amy, what do they do if they do hit a deer?
If you do hit a deer, first off, make sure you're safe. If it is dead, you can go online to the DNR's website and get a free roadkill salvage tag. It is free. You just fill it out, print it out, and report it, and then you can take it home. If you don't know what to do with it, though, please call a hunter. Please call a hunter and see if they would be open to taking it because we don't want to leave it on the side of the road if we can help it.
And then if it's not dead, you can also call the police if it's close by and struggling and it needs to be put down. You can call the police, they can come help, and then they can also write you a salvage tag as well.
Absolutely. And, again, another message to leave us with is hunters keep hunting. Again, we do have places, and it's not everywhere, and I am sensitive to that. It's not everywhere, but we do have an overpopulation of deer in certain areas, and we heard from those, deer crash collision stats. Those are some of those key areas for sure. We do need to do better at harvesting does and bringing down the population in those areas. Again, we know EHD exists. We know CWD exists. TB zone is another thing that we're trying to manage. And in the UP, it's wolves, it's population, it's winter. There's a lot of things against the deer herd, but we are trying to do what we can to manage it, and we do need hunters' participation in it.
Yep. And those of us in this room, we're doing our job. I know we've taken down a few does ourselves. So for everyone listening, go shoot a doe if you haven't already. They taste just as good as bucks, I can promise you, if not better. But yeah, anything else you guys want to add?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah,
I really
thanks for
appreciate
coming.
it.
Yeah.
Amy, it's great to see you, and it's so great to be back here at MUCC. Feels good.
Well, we're glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thanks, guys.